Here's an answer to the question of why the observation that this particular raven is black confirms the hypothesis that all ravens are black, and the observation that this particular non-black thing is not a raven doesn't. As a way of getting your head around what's going on in a case like this, imagine that you're a king, and that you're a king with an interest in ornithology. And your standard way of investigating things is not to go out yourself with binoculars, but to send off your minions to look into the questions. And so you become interested in this question of whether all ravens are black. You summon your minions. You say to the first, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go out and find out if this claim is true. I want you to go out and see if you can find a counterexample to the claim. A raven that's not black. And here's how you'll do it. Find all the ravens you can. Go seek out ravens and see if you can find one that's not black. So the minion goes off. And then you summon a second minion. And you say, I just want you to find a counterexample. I want to see if you can find a counterexample. A raven that's not black. And here's how you'll do it. You'll look at all the non-black things. Seek out non-black things. And see if you can find one that's a raven. Okay, so the minions go off. Which of them do you think more likely to find a counterexample first? Well, surely the first one. The first guy is much more likely to come back with a counterexample. Why? Because there are so many fewer ravens in the world than there are non-black things in the world. There are immeasurably more non-black things in the world than there are ravens in the world. So a procedure whereby you check the ravens and see if they're black is much more likely to yield a counterexample to the hypothesis that all ravens are black than a procedure where you check all the non-black things and find out if they're non-ravens. That's going to take a long, long, long time to yield a counterexample. So, on this way of thinking, it's not that my observing of a particular non-black thing, that it's not a raven, provides me with no evidence at all, should make me no more confident that all ravens are black. Maybe it should make me fractionally more confident that all ravens are black. Just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. But that bit is really fractional. It's really tiny. And it's tiny because it was so antecedently unlikely to me of any given non-black thing that it would turn out to be a raven. I already knew that almost every non-black thing in the world is not a raven. And so learning of a particular non-black thing that it's not a raven doesn't really change my views very much. Whereas, of course, in a case where I learned that a particular raven is black, well, I thought it was much more likely that that raven was going to turn out to be a counterexample to the claim that all ravens are black. So learning that it's not a counterexample should make me more confident in the claim. Now this all turned on what I antecedently thought likely. And of course that could be different. Let me describe a situation in which it would be different. Suppose the world we were living in had a very different balance of ravens to non-black things. Suppose that it was almost all ravens. Almost everything in the universe is a raven. 99.9% of things in the world are ravens. And then suppose also that almost everything in the universe is black. Only 0.001% of things in the world, in the universe, are non-black. Now, if I was the king and I wanted to investigate the hypothesis that all ravens are black, the minion who I sent off to check the ravens one by one and see if he could find a non-black one is much less likely to find a counterexample quickly than the minion who I sent off to check the non-black things and see if he could find a raven. Second guy has many fewer things to check. So, put it another way, in this world, a particular non-black thing, I regard that as a more likely counterexample to the claim that all ravens are black than a particular raven. So, in this world, the discovery of a particular non-black thing, that it's not a raven, should render me significantly more confident that all ravens are black. And the discovery of a raven that it's black shouldn't render me much more confident that all ravens are black. So we can resolve this kind of problem that Goodman was pointing to. He got the problem from Hempel, famous philosopher, and just by saying that whether or not a particular observation confirms a hypothesis depends in part on how antecedently likely we thought it that an observation of that kind would disconfirm the hypothesis. But there remains a problem which is in many ways deeper than this problem, and it has to do with confirmation and when observations confirm hypotheses. And that's what we'll get to in the next clip.